Hello. I have no idea what's going on. I'm looking at a completely new screen that wasn't there before. I'm trying to see what it's going to do. If it's going to let me see my screen as it is. Oh, me. Let's see if I can change that. Usually I'm looking at myself on screen as you would be if you were in full screen. Screen. But at the moment, I'm in a tiny little box in the corner. So I'm putting my title in here, see if it's actually going to work. Yes, save post. Come on. Right. So I can't see who's in, who's not. Try and do this. Ooh, bigger screen. Bigger screen. Now I can see. Can somebody type something to see if this thing is actually working? Because I can't see if there's anybody here, if I'm talking to myself, or what. I've got paint on my hat. I'll open it up on my phone so I can see what's going on from your view side. This is weird. Oh, I am there. Hello. I have no idea what's going on. Hang on till I sort this out. Turn the sound down. Right, hey, hi Alan, Sarah, Scott, Sharon, hello. There's only Alan's message actually come up on screen. Hey ho, never mind. Excuse the attire. I was out. Oh, cool. I was out trying to paint the shed, and then the rain started, and I thought I'll no bother getting changed, because if I get changed, the weather will change, and I'll be able to go out and finish it. But it never came back right. Thank you, Alan. Hey, Audrey. Now, tonight we're going to do Lhanbryde. I will apologise if it's a bit disjointed and lots of so's and well and thens, but this is all stuff that I've just researched today. So this is the first time I'll be presenting anything on Lhanbryde. So I'll apologise for being a bit disjointed, and I will be referring to my notes that I made today. This thing keeps clicking off. I've got it open on my phone though, and I can see you're all still here. Thank you. So, Lhanbryde. Lhanbryde is a funny place. It's a tale of two villages, really. Up until 1780, it was two separate villages. I'm not taking the hat off because my hair's going to be hat hair, so apologies. You just have to put up with me having a baseball cap on. So, let's start with the name. The two villages, Haiti, are Lhanbryde and St Andrews. Now, Lhanbryde has had its name changed more times than Elgin has. So, Lhan comes from Lhuin, Lhuin. Oh, I just got a notification to tell me that I'm live. I didn't notice that. Thank you very much for that, Facebook. Yeah, I don't like this new live stream editor stuff that we've got to use for this. Oh, that's not good. Why does it keep getting interrupted? Oh, I'm looking at the stream metrics. It keeps going up and down, up and down, up and down. Whether that tells me anything useful or not, I really don't know. Facebook has not received a video signal. Really? I don't like this. I want to go back to the original thing. And it wouldn't give me the option of going back to the old way before. So I'm not happy. I don't like this. Really don't like this new way of doing it. It's a pain in the bum from this end. Never mind. Tough. Not interrupted there. It just keeps freezing. Maybe I need to talk this slowly so it doesn't freeze. Okay, so it looks like it's froze and interrupted for a few people and fine for others. Cool. Okay. Yeah. Lhan comes from Lhuin, which is Lhuin, which derives from an early Pictish word for church or standing stone. Lhan is the Welsh spelling of the same word. If you've studied Gaelic, broadcasted interrupted. I'll interrupt you in a minute, Facebook. Stupid. If it's not broke, don't fix it. Why do you keep coming out with this new stuff that messes everything up? Yeah, so Lhan is the Welsh spelling. Now, if you've looked at Gaelic at all, you'll see that Gaelic is very similar to Welsh, which is also similar to the original languages that they would have used in Brittany. And they all basically have the same root, which is why Lan for Lhanbryde becomes Lhanbryde if you use the Welsh accent. It's basically the same word. It means church or the place of the church. The first thing there that we know of is a stone circle, which is, or was, the ruins of which were at the southeast of where the railway station used to stand. Now, place names. Lhanbryde, the church place of St. Bridget, is the English translation of Lhanbryde. Every time I do a live, Mum, dinna phone me when I'm doing a live. You ken I'm doing a live. So, the church place of St. Bridget. St. Bridget is the queen of the fairies, the bringer of spring, the bringer of the flowers, the bringer of the buds. So, St. Bride's Church, there is a St. Bride's Church still in existence, not too far away. Back in 1215, it was called Lhanbryde, which I theorise could have come from Lammas, which is the time of the lambing, and it was one of the important festivals for the Pictish calendar before the Christians came in. And, well, it's all farmland, so it could have come from Lammas. Then in the end of the 1300s, it's changed its name to Lhanbryde, Lambride. In the 1600s, it's just called Lhanbry, Lambry. And by 1750, I kind of thought along those lines, Jolene, yeah. By 1750, it was called Lhanbryde. So that's all the different place names it's had. They don't think that the name was finalised until the 1800s. Yeah, an LH for our version. Yeah, exactly. They don't think the place name was actually fixed or spelled right until the post office came to Lhanbryde, which was in 1839. Then in 1858, you had the railways coming through Lhanbryde. So you kind of had to have the same place name so that people knew where they were going. And the posties knew where they were going. Now, this is all very disjointed timeline-wise. I haven't had time to thread it into a proper timeline for you. So, in 1796, the church that was in the middle of the cemetery that's in the middle of the village, that church was already in a ruined state in 1796, so it was demolished. Allegedly, I haven't found anything to back it up yet, but then again, I only had 2 hours time to do some research. Allegedly, there is a tombstone for a member of the Knights Templar in that cemetery too. The geology beneath Lhanbryde is what they're calling dirty, unclean limestone. So it's a mixture of limestone and other bits and pieces. There is also quite a few chunks of Jurassic rock floating around in amongst the topsoil and the next level beneath them. Hey, now, I couldn't place this, but maybe if you live there or have spent some decent time there, maybe you can. High ground in the west of the village, next to a farm that was called Stonecross Hill Farm. On that little hill, there used to be a stone cross, which marked the very first part of the journey from Aberdeen side, where you could actually see Elgin Cathedral in the distance. Presumably put there for those who were going on tribute on journeys to the cathedral to pay their respects, or maybe even pay their rent, you know. In 1854, the village was rearranged. They've not told, it doesn't tell you what they've rearranged, but the village plan was rearranged by the trustees of James II, Earl of Fife. There were mineral springs at Lhanbryde also, some of which may still exist. None of them have had their locations being given in a way that I could understand, or even break it down to a way that the locals of Lhanbryde would be able to understand. But if anybody knows where any of them are or might be, give me a shout. 1780 is the year when St Andrews and Lhanbryde became one village rather than two. Now, that's a big time span and not a lot of history so far, which happens a lot with the wee villages. But Audrey, I believe it was, sent me a message about Gillen's Wood. So I did a bit of research on Gillen's Wood, and I found the story. I even found a transcript of Gillen's trial. So I'm going to read that to you. This is from a book called Hangman's Brae by Norman Adams. True Crime and Punishment in Aberdeen and the North East. On dark and windy nights, the rattle and eerie whine of chains ensured folk gave Alexander Gibbon's gibbeted corpse on Spiny Moor a wide berth. It was whispered that his ghost haunted the bleak spot near Fauqueber's Murray. See, because they thought it was nearer Fauqueber's than Lhanbryde. But it's Spiny Moor, so it could cover both areas, actually. Where he had committed a foul murder, and where he would eventually suffer at the hands of an incompetent hangman. One Sunday in August 1810, Alexander Gillen, who was 19, set off across the moor from his employer John Thompson's farm at Spiny, with the intention of visiting relatives in the nearby village of Lhanbryde along the way. On the way, he met 10-year-old Elspeth Lamb, whose sister had rejected the hot-headed Gillen, who worked as a farm servant. Elspeth was herding cattle belonging to her father, John Lamb, who farmed Nether Newton. Cool, thanks, Andrew. Nether Newton. Dark juices swam within Gillen. He ravished the girl, then battered her to death with a boulder. Instead of continuing his journey to Lhanbryde, he attended morning service in the Spaymouth Parish Church, better known as the Red Kirk because of its red harled walls. This is where he was arrested. His blood-stained clothing and his staff cut from a tree before he committed the murder were found at the scene. The following month at the Circuit Court in Inverness, Gillen was found guilty of rape and murder and sentenced to be gibbeted on Spiny Moor. The judge, Charles Hope, Lord Justice Clark, raged at Gillen. "I look upon any punishment you can receive in this world as mercy. Did you flatter yourself that if you escaped detection here, you could have lived or taken your place among the industrious in the peaceful occupations of men? If so, you greatly deceived yourself. The mangled corpse of this innocent would have unceasingly haunted you. Her departed spirit would have drawn aside your curtain at midnight, and horror and despair would have driven you to take vengeance upon yourself." The eye of God never slept, the judge warned. And, by going to the church after his crime, the condemned man thought he would hide his guilt amongst the people of God. Instead, the house of God, to which he had impiously fled to cover his wickedness, became a means of bringing his guilt to light. Gillen betrayed no emotion as the Lord Justice Clark, passing sentence, said it was decreed that the prisoner should be deprived of a Christian burial. He would make Gillen a more lasting and memorable example of the fate which awaits the commission of such sins as yours. His spine-tingling judgment continued. Yeah, there was 3 in total, Johnny. The particular situation of the country where this crime was committed, its extensive and vast woods, its uninhabited moors, and the solitude which reigns over it are but too well calculated for purposes such as yours. I am therefore anxious that these solitary woods and extensive wilds may be traversed by every person of both sexes, at all times, and even on the hours of night, with confidence and security. It is my duty to make them as safe as the streets of a city. Boom, boom, there's a joke in there somewhere. I have therefore determined that after your execution, you shall be hung in chains until the birds of the air pick the flesh off your body, and your bones bleach and whiten in the winds of heaven, thereby to afford a constant warning of the fatal consequences which inevitably attend the indulgence of the passions, and hoping that the example may operate in the prevention of crimes and secure more permanent safety of the people. Gillen spent the last few days of his life on bread and water in the quaint 3-storey Tolbooth which once dominated Elgin's marketplace, where the wee bronze pyramid is on the high street. That's where that building was. On Wednesday the 14th of November 1810, Gillen was conveyed to Spiny Moor in a cart, with the Inverness hangman William Taylor and the gibbet irons, which had been made by the Elgin blacksmiths in another. That doesn't make no sense. Made by the Elgin blacksmiths in another. And, oh yes, in another, comma, not full stop, an escort was provided by towns officers and troops of the 78th Regiment Seaforths, stationed at Fort George. They had a long journey to attend that, eh? It was reported by the Inverness Journal that an immense concourse of people from every quarter and every age and sex followed the official party. Gillen, who wore white mittens over his shackled hands, broke down and was unable to read a piece of paper he clutched in his hand. It was rumoured to be a lurid confession, but it proved to be quotations from religious tracts. He managed to climb the ladder to the scaffold to await his fate. However, there was a delay while Taylor haggled over his perks of office, namely the prisoner's clothes. Or as the press put it, he was detained in this state of awful suspense too long by the unskilfulness of the executioner, whose concerns seemed directed to the prerequisites of the office more than the business in which he was engaged. After the drop, Gillen's dead body hung for an hour before it was taken down and put in irons. The Inverness Journal described the gibbeting as a shocking example of the dreadful effects of vice when permitted to usurp the empire of reason, an example which, it is hoped, will strike deep into the minds of the rising generation and tend to prevent the recurrence of such terrifying spectacles. The day after the execution, the registrar in the nearby parish of Uchart made the following entry in his records. Alexander Gillen was a good-looking young man, but had always been of a stubborn, disobedient temper and licentious conversation. Till after his condemnation, he seemed to have no proper sense of his crime. He then began to relent and suffered apparently very penitently. His body may be seen hanging in chains, very distinctly from both sides of Urquhart, but particularly from the west side of the churchyard by standing on Elspeth Lamb's grave. It was remarkable, it was noted, that the places where 3 criminals had been gibbeted were all within sight of each other. Referring to Gillen, Kenneth Neal, who robbed a postron, and a murderer by the name of MacGregor, who was executed in the 1730s. Now, the hangman that was arguing about getting the clothing and stuff, he didn't go unpunished either. Hangman Taylor's callousness on the drop had not been forgotten, and sometimes after, he received an anonymous letter informing him that a new executioner was required in Aberdeen. Taylor set out to apply for the office, but on his way through Elgin, he was set upon by a mob. He was badly maltreated and dragged to the top of Lady Hill in a cart, which was then rolled down the steep slope. The hapless hangman momentarily gave his tormentors the slip, made his way to a farm, where a cart was sent to carry him to Forres. He was caught again and unceremoniously dumped out of the cart into an open shed at Drumdoon, where he was found dead the next morning. He was buried in Hell's Hole on Cluny Hill at Forres. Years later, an elderly Elgin woman told a local author, "Will you stop sending me messages?" told a local author that the hangman was set upon by the suitors. Suitor is not just a surname. It's the old job name for a shoemaker. The suitors, shoemakers, who chased him out of the town, prodding him with their awls. Taylor waded across the River Lossy above the Haw, giving the spot the name of the Hangman's Ford. Then you have, on the 20th of March 1811, the Aberdeen Journal reported, "We understand a precognition is going on before the Sheriff of Elgin regarding certain circumstances which are said to have occasioned the death of the miserable creature who acted as executioner in this place. When on his way through Elgin to Aberdeen, from his well-known habits, it is highly probable that his death is more to be ascribed to the effects of drunkenness and cold than to any inhumanity on the part of the people of Elgin." Despite the superior opinion of Elgin folk, the Inverness Journal then reported from the Circuit Court in Inverness the following month. This is a really badly written thing. Oh no, wait a minute. That's right. James McCurroch and John Dawson, shoemakers' apprentices from Elgin, accused of assaulting, stabbing and otherwise maltreating William Taylor, late executioner of Inverness, while at Elgin, were found guilty and sentenced to be transported beyond seas for 7 years. The judge was Lord Hermond. Gillen's body vanished overnight, but his gallows served as a macabre landmark until 1911, when the landowner, the Duke of Richmond, agreed it was a public nuisance and it should be removed and buried on the spot. Human bones were disturbed, but whether they belonged to the murderer or a suicide is unclear. A small cross of oak was made. It was claimed from his gallows and was erected on the spot. So there's the story of Gillen's Wood and Hangman's Ford as well. Now let me have a look at these messages. Yeah, I always thought Lhanbryde was somebody famous who was Welsh, that it was named after as well, yeah. Gillen's grave's still there. Oh, is it still visible? Oh, I would love for somebody to send me a photo of it. If you happen to have one. I don't want you to go out traipsing looking for it and take a photo for me. If you've got a photo already, that'd be fantastic. Cool. Yeah, there was the three of them all together, but there's like 100 years between the three of them, but all three of them were left for the birds and the animals to take what they wanted. Ooh. Oh, I'll need to have a look at that one, Scott. Thank you. Oh, it's nice if somebody's made a wee plaque for Elspeth as well. 10-year-old, you know, knew nothing at life. 10-year-old, but she was already the cowherd for the family. Coxton Tower, I haven't actually done anything on yet. It's taken me all day to find stuff that's not just who lived where and what rent did they pay. It's taken me all day to find that little bits I've been able to tell you. I am looking at Coxton Tower over the next couple of days, see if I can maybe come up with some stories for you for that. But I mean, even that, I mean, that's 2 hours research and I've only got half an hour spiel out of it. So, and this new way of doing it, I really don't like, because I can hardly see any of the comments coming up on screen. So I really don't like that. I did find quite a few old photographs of the old railway station and that's what I used for the photograph for the event page. So I did find some photos more than anything else. I'm just going through the comments I can see on here. It's really weird because it does keep going. It keeps flickering black every few seconds. I'll put my camera up and show you in a second what it keeps doing from my end. Because normally I see it the same way you do when you click on full screen for the Facebook videos. But this is completely different. Right. There is my screen, and just here is the tiny little box that I'm watching in. Right? And then over here, your comments are. But all of this crap, I have no idea. No idea at all. But never mind. Facebook is sent to confuse us, like some of us aren't already frustrated enough. Thank you, Gillian. So yeah, I'm kind of like, I'm looking at myself down here in this little corner over here. And then I go over here to read your messages. Really doesn't make any sense. And everybody sent me the same message at the same time on the private message. Says, share this, share this, share this. How's about you share off, to be polite? Oh, it didn't show you the clip, the flicker. Right, let's see if we get it. I've put it on bigger screen. There was one flicker. Because when it does it, the left side where the messages are doesn't disappear. But the rest flickers off. Let's see if it'll do it again. Come on. You just did it a minute ago. Do it again. Do it again. I'm not putting the camera back because as soon as I do, it will stop doing it. Ooh, wow. I'll bring that up in a second. I'm trying to get this flicker. Did it do it then? Oh, me. Right, let's have a look. 1907 murder in Lhanbryde. I think that might be one that I had a little tiny bit of the... Joseph Hume! Aha! Oh, wait a minute. There's a couple different things. Right, I don't know if this is about the same one. I think it is. Yes, it is, because it's the same victim's name. Right. Aha. Joseph Hume, age 25, sex male, crime murder. Date of execution, 5th of March 1908. Crime location, Lhanbryde. Execution place, Inverness. Method, hanging. Executioner, Henry Pierpoint. Joseph Hume was convicted. This is from the British newspaper archive.co.uk. Joseph Hume was convicted of the murder of John Barclay Smith and sentenced to death. He battered him to death at Lhanbryde, Elgin, around the 24th of September 1907 at his home during a robbery. John Smith was not found for a few days, but on the 29th of September 1907, a neighbour began to smell a foul odour coming from his flat upstairs, and she told the police, who forced their way in and found him dead on his bed. His head had been smashed in, sorry for the gory details, folks, and his watch was missing. There were 3 empty spirit and beer bottles on a table, and in the front room, police found John Smith's mash hammer, which was covered in blood. There was no sign of a struggle, although the wooden frame of the bedstead was smashed as though the murderer had missed his target and hit it instead. When the police carried out their investigations, they found that John Smith had been seen with a man early that day, and the description of the man was taken, and it was found to match that of a man that had recently deserted from the Highland Light Infantry, called Joseph Hume. He was later arrested in Stirling on Wednesday the 23rd of October 1907, where he had been using the name Joseph Middleton. He had been in Stirling since the 11th of October, when he had arrived with a man that was supposed to be his brother and had obtained lodgings in Mulburn's lodging house in St Mary's Wynd. However, the following day he had left and gone to Ballingham's lodging house in St John Street. After that, he had got work as a mason's labourer. He was found after the police visited lodging houses in the area showing people photos of Joseph Hume. He was immediately identified, and the police then went to his place of work where they arrested him. When he was arrested, he said that his name was Joseph Middleton, but later admitted that it was Joseph Hume and that he had deserted from the Highland Light Infantry and then later re-enlisted in the same regiment under the name of Joseph Rutherford, but said he knew nothing about the murder. Talk about a complicated web of lies! The police later went on to a number of pawn shops, and a pawnbroker from Edinburgh came forward to say that Joseph Hume had pawned a watch with him, and the watch was later identified as being John Smith's. The evidence against Joseph Hume was mostly circumstantial. Joseph Hume was identified as the man that had been seen with John Smith during the 2 days before the murder, and it was proved that the watch that Joseph Hume had pawned was John Smith's. John Smith was a road contractor, and then you've got other bits and pieces that you can look up where it includes a picture. And this one's the PDF file, which doesn't want to open. I see what you mean. Oh, my camera's froze. Why is my camera's froze? The PDF one won't even open for me, from the Murray and Nairn Family History Society. I did come across William Noble in some other stuff. What was it I was looking up then? (1833). Yeah, William Noble. I did come across him with something else. He's showing on the Lib Index system. Deserter from the army, robbed and murdered William Ritchie, labourer, Lhanbryde, on the Elgin-Lhanbryde Road near Barmuckety on the 28th of December 1833. Noble was executed on the 31st of May 1834. This was the last public execution in Moray. There was quite a few newspaper articles about this before the execution. You've got one article where they're offering a reward for information about Ritchie's murder. This is off of the Lib Index system through the Moray Council libraries. Then that was the 8th of January 1834. Then 2 days later, there's an article about details of the arrest of Noble. And 14th April, you have a description of the execution. See, nowadays you wouldn't be allowed to do that. Then on the 16th of February 1889, they put the details of Noble's execution in the paper. The description of the execution was reprinted on the 23rd of February. Elgin Courant put a description of the murder in 1907, which is quite odd because that ties in with the other murder. Description of the murder and the execution again 5 days later. They must have been off a short of news. Forest Gazette, same day, 9th of October 1907, has the description of the murder and Noble's execution. Elgin Courant, an advertiser, runs the same article on the 9th, the 16th, the 23rd, the 30th of January 1907 and 1948. And on the 30th of January 1948, they run the same thing again. Wow. And it's also noted in the 1891 issue of Elgin Past and Present by my pal's great-great-granda, Lachlan Mackintosh, on page 152. So it's... LibIndex is a good system for your research, and by putting in the 1833 murder in Lhanbryde into Google, that's the first place it takes you, is the LibIndex system. Because a lot of the others, just family history and BBC Social and all that stuff. The Gazetteer of Scotland didn't really have anything much, except for mentioning that originally Lhanbryde's boundaries went from the Spey to the River Lossy, and Spiny Loch, according to the old maps, comes under Lhanbryde. So from the River Spey to Spiny Loch, that whole section, there's a big giant boomerang kind of shape, messed up boomerang, that technically all belong to the Lhanbryde parish. So it might just be a wee village, but it's got a lot of land with it. And it had a lot more land than it has now. So, but over the course of the 1700s and the 1800s, there were 3 different men gibbeted on Spiny Moor. They were visible for Urquhart, they were visible for Lhanbryde, and from each one of the gibbets you could actually see the other 2. So they were all within sight of each other, and they were all left as a way of hopefully putting the bad guys off. So I wouldn't be walking that way. It's an awful long walk. But I suppose back then you didn't really have much chance. And this flickering thing is driving me demented. So it's quite interesting. Nowadays you wouldn't think that there was such things like that happened in that big empty space between Lhanbryde and Spiny Palace. But there was. There was also mention in one of, I think it was Audrey's messages again, about a finishing school. I've not seen the other 2 schools. Cranloch appears to be the oldest school building there that I've seen. And it did have residential bits and pieces, so perhaps the finishing school is what Cranloch used to be before it got the reputation that it got in the 1980s and 90s. Maybe that was the finishing school before it was the school that they sent you when all the other schools in Murray had finished with you. I am definitely going to look into the Coxton Tower stuff, see what I can find. It will probably be a little add-in to a different one, because I don't think I'm going to be able to fill an hour unless I find a very good description of the building and other bits and pieces to do with. I do know that over the years, over the last 30, 40 years, there's been 2 different types of owners at Coxton. One is, come on, I'll take you around, I'll show you the bits. And the other one is, get off my land. The most recent ones I've heard recently is, it's one of these people, it's like, sure, come in, have a look, I'll show you. So that's a really good thing, because a lot of the time, when places get attacked by the Neds, it's usually because they can't get in. So they decide to take their own temper out on the building, seeing as they can't get to the folk that said, no, you can't come in. So, but I will have a look. Hauntings wise, I've done 2 house clearances in Lhanbryde. One of them, a previous inhabitant of the house had been messing with something that they shouldn't have been messing with. One of them. They've been messing with one of them and didn't know what they were doing. And the ones who were living there at the time I went had some weird stuff and scary stuff happening. Went over, did the clearance, found a portal, shut the portal, sealed it off. Yeah, they do quite often take part in the Doors Open Day in September, Audrey. Ah, I see, Johnny. Aye. Oh, that's really cool. See, this is what I like when we can have a back and forth between. It's like I can find this little bit and you can tell me the bits that you found and we get a full story in the finish up. Oh, there we go. It does say that book that I was reading it from does have Steiny Farm. Steiny Moor, actually, it says. So it could well be that Steiny Moor has turned into Spiny Moor, and Steiny Farm is more than likely the correct place. But I would think with the layout, if you look directly from above, it's a dead straight line from Spiny Palace to Lhanbryde and the surrounding bits around Lhanbryde. So it could well be just the change of names over the years when folk have said, you know, like when they do the census and they used to come round and ask you, and what's the name of this place? And most folk couldn't read or write, so things got changed. Place names got changed, people's names got changed. McGillen might have turned into Gillen, you know. Macpherson could have been turned into Fearson, and so on and so forth. Steiny could have been turned into Spiny, or vice versa. Ah! Brilliant. Yeah. Could well be then. Could well be. Because it's Steiny all the way through the book. It's just the description of the land that they're going over reads like Spiny Moor. Or what would have been Spiny Moor. Now it's Back Road Velocity at Lhanbryde. So... and that would make more sense for it to be a slightly shorter walk. Thank you for that, Jane. Yeah. So this house, the previous occupants had been messing about with the Ouija board, and the folk who lived there at the time were having weird stuff happening, noises, smells, all sorts of things. So I went over to do a house clearance. There was no big bag oogity boogities, but there was a portal. So I shut and sealed the portal and told the house, the homeowner, the tenant, what to do if things started kicking off again, how to handle it. Another house clearance I did was very, very similar, but just basically had like leftover people who hadn't gone over to where they were supposed to. And we finished that one off. And as I was finishing that one off, I noticed an object had an attachment. I'm like, look, don't have it on display. Put it somewhere. I know you don't want to part with it, so put it somewhere where it's outside of the bit where you and the kids are. And that's what they did. But that one, the object, when I asked the person about it, yeah, it had moved and things. Very slight. It's like, okay. So it might have moved, it might not have moved, but as soon as I said, the person was like, yeah, and I'm like, right, okay, lock it away. And yeah, it was day. So she locked it away in a different part of the house, away from everybody. And that combined with the cleansing, the house calmed down, cooled down, no activity, nothing. But I have to ask you, now you've moved house, what did you do with that item before you moved? Did you leave it there? Or did you throw it away or take it with you? Waiting for it to catch up now. It went in the bin in the finish up. So you're alright then. It's not still in the house. So. Right, folks. I think I'm going to leave you to it. I'll do a bit more research on Coxton, see what I can find out. And tomorrow we have the convent. I've been trying to find my old scripts from when I used to have a show on Elgin Radio. Yes, Elgin used to have a radio station. And I kept my old scripts, but I can't for the life of me find them at the moment. If I find them, it'll save me a lot of time on research because they're what I originally did all the research for. So, but tomorrow is the convent. Brings me back onto home turf. And if you think of anywhere else or any other building or location that you want me to have a look at, let me know. You can put it on one of the videos, you can drop me a private message, whatever. Just let me know if there's somewhere that you're interested in, and we'll have a look at the history, and I'll have a look and see if there's any ghost stories, myths, legends, other bits and pieces attached to it as well. But for now, take care of yourselves, look after you and yours, and I will see you whenever I get a chance to see you. Sweet dreams. Be good.